Dear friends, this is episode number 42. In episode number 41, we have dealt with up to sub rule 2 of rule 1 of order 23. Now let us see what is sub rule 3 onwards. Let us read sub rule 3 that deals with withdrawal. Where the court is satisfied, I said that withdrawal can be in two ways. Withdrawal from the suit with the permission of the court, two without the permission of the court. The consequences are different. Let us see. Where the court is satisfied, A, that a suit must fail by reason of some formal defect, or that there are sufficient grounds for allowing the plaintiff to institute a fresh suit for the subject matter of a suit or part of a claim. It may, on such terms as it thinks fit, grant the plaintiff permission to withdraw from such suit or such part of the claim, with the liberty to institute a fresh suit in respect to the subject matter of such suit or such part of the claim. What is that? 1. The suit must fail by reason of a formal defect, and that defect is to be cured and a fresh suit is to be filed. The court may grant permission. Court is satisfied that there is a formal defect which may affect the maintainability of the suit or something like that. The court may permit, all right, you withdraw from the suit and institute a fresh suit. Or 2, that there are sufficient grounds for allowing the plaintiff to institute a fresh suit for the subject matter of the suit or part of the claim. Sufficient reasons, it is for the court to ascertain whether there are sufficient reasons, depending on the facts and circumstances of each case. It may, on such terms as it thinks fit, cost or otherwise as it thinks fit, grant the plaintiff permission to withdraw from suit or such part of the claim with the liberty to institute a fresh suit in respect of the subject matter of the suit or such part of the claim. So this is the suit with permission. Let us see what happens. The consequences are, we will get it in sub rule 4. Where the plaintiff abandons any suit or part of claim under sub rule 1. We have seen abandonment in sub rule 1 of rule 1. Withdraws from a suit or part of the claim without the permission referred to in sub rule 3. Sub rule 3 reference is made, or sub rule 3 deals with the permission of the court for withdrawal from the suit, and if permission is granted, a fresh suit may be instituted. Suppose the withdrawal takes place without the permission referred to in sub rule 3, then what happens? 1. Abandonment of a suit under sub rule 1. 2. That is clause B, withdrawal from the suit without the permission under sub rule 3. In these contingencies, he shall be liable for such cause as the court may award, and shall be precluded from instituting any fresh suit in respect to the subject matter or such part of the claim. That is the bar. That is the consequence of abandoning the suit or withdrawing from the suit without the permission of the court. This will occur when that contingency happens. Then, sub rule 5. Nothing in this rule shall be deemed to authorize the court to permit one of several plaintiffs to abandon a suit or part of a claim under sub rule 1, or to withdraw under sub rule 3 any suit or part of a claim without the consent of the other plaintiffs. Suppose 5 plaintiffs have instituted a suit. One seeks to abandon the suit, wants to abandon the suit. He moves for the same, or he seeks permission to withdraw or to withdraw under sub-rule 3. He seeks permission to withdraw from the suit under sub-rule 3 without the junction of the other 4 plaintiffs. What will happen to them? If withdrawal takes place, they have to file a fresh suit. Why should they? They are entitled to continue the suit. Sometimes the withdrawal by one plaintiff may be as a result of collusion or adjustment between him and some of the defendants. The court may seek the opinion of the other defendants. If the other defendants also pray for the same, the court may consider whether withdrawal can be permitted under sub-rule 3 with the permission of the court. That is a matter to be considered. But unilaterally by one of the plaintiffs, he cannot do it, either abandonment or withdrawal, without the consent of the other plaintiffs. So consent of the other plaintiffs is required. This is rule 1 of Order 23. I said 3 categories of cases come under rule 1. 1. Abandonment. When abandonment takes place, he shall be liable, he shall be precluded from instituting a fresh suit in respect of the subject matter or part of the claim. 2. Withdrawal of 2 categories, A and B. A without the permission of the court, B with the permission of the court. If it is without the permission of the court, he will be precluded from instituting a fresh suit in respect of the subject matter or part of the claim. If it is with the permission of the court, he may institute a suit, fresh suit. These are the consequences, these are the categories of cases. And the requirements are different, and when permission is to be granted, the court must be satisfied that either there is a formal defect or there are sufficient grounds for allowing the plaintiff to withdraw from the suit. And there is a bar that one of several plaintiffs, without the junction of the other plaintiffs, he cannot withdraw from the suit or seek for permission for withdrawal from the suit or abandon the suit under sub-rule 1, sub-rule 1 of rule 1 without the permission of the other plaintiffs. That is a bar. Now, without going into rule 1A, we will see rule 2. Rule 1A we will come later. What will happen if to the fresh suit? Fresh suit is a fresh suit. It is not a continuation of the earlier suit. That I was prosecuting a suit for 1 year, then I withdrew from the suit with the permission of the court, permission was granted, and therefore I instituted the suit. Therefore this must be treated as within time. Such a contention will not lie. Say for example, the period of limitation for filing a suit is 3 years. You instituted a suit. Either there was a formal defect or it has by various amendments it has become so clumsy that it is better to withdraw from the suit and institute a fresh suit, whatever there may be the reason. The court is satisfied that there is reason. Court granted permission. Got permission. You instituted a fresh suit. By that time the period of limitation is over. What will happen to the second suit? Is there any guarantee for saving of limitation for the fresh suit? Absolutely nothing. You take the risk and you get permission to withdraw from the suit. You withdraw the suit and thereafter you are not bound to institute a fresh suit. If you do not institute, it is your concern. You may do it. You are permitted to do it. Otherwise, you cannot. You keep mum. Nobody will ask why you have not instituted a fresh suit. So that the fresh suit to be instituted is a fresh one. The limitation has to be computed with reference to the date on which you file the second suit. It has no connection with the first suit, except in one case which I will refer to that. To some extent complicated. That is why I said that we will go to Rule 2 now itself, and also we will go to Section 14(3) of the Limitation Act. That position has to be made clear, so that we will not commit any mistake on that. We will not give a wrong advice also. Very many situations may arise to seek withdrawal of the suit, not only formal defect. Suppose a suit is filed for injunction. Then something happened. You amended the plaint. Then you amended the plaint again to have a declaration. Then you amended the schedule. You are the plaintiff. So many situations may arise and it may become so clumsy. Therefore, there is nothing wrong in saying that, all right, I will institute a fresh suit. I may be permitted to withdraw from this suit. Court may grant permission. If it is not a dilatory tactic, it is not a tactic to oppress the defendant. All those things, subject to cost and otherwise, the court may grant permission. But that is not a guarantee that your freshly instituted suit, if it is outside the period of limitation, you are entitled to get some exclusion or something, except in Section 14(3) of the Limitation Act. We will come to 14(3) now itself. What is Rule 2? Rule 2 says, if any fresh suit is instituted on permission granted under the last preceding rule, the plaintiff shall be bound by law of limitation. Last preceding rule must be Rule 1. Rule 1A was introduced by CPC Amendment 1976. This Rule 2 was there even before that. So last preceding rule, everybody understands that it is Rule 1. If any fresh suit is instituted on permission granted under the last preceding rule, the plaintiff shall be bound by the law of limitation in the same manner as if the first suit had not been instituted. So that when you withdraw from the suit, when you apply for it, be careful. You cannot, without looking into the consequences, you cannot file an application for permission, withdraw from the suit, and then institute a fresh suit. By that time, if it is barred by limitation, nobody can save it. There is no question of condoning, because Section 5 of the Limitation Act does not apply to suits. The only exception is Section 14(3) of the Limitation Act. So, this is the pitfall for the lawyers. So, unless they are sure that the second suit, that is after getting permission, you are instituting a fresh suit, that suit you can file it within the period of limitation. Unless you can do it, don't withdraw. That is a lesson we have to take care of. Now, I said about Section 14(3) of the Limitation Act. You must have a Limitation Act with you. Sorry, I forgot to mention it yesterday in the last episode. See, 14(3), to some extent it is difficult. For understanding 14(3), we have to read 14(1) and 14(2). Exclusion of time of proceeding bona fide in court without jurisdiction. That means you were bona fide prosecuting a suit before a court. That court has no jurisdiction. Then that period during which you are prosecuting before a court a suit, and because of the defect of jurisdiction of the court, the suit cannot be entertained, you are entitled to get deduction of it, exclusion of it. We'll read. In computing the period of limitation for any suit, the time during which the plaintiff has been prosecuting with due diligence another civil proceeding whether in a court of the first instance or of appeal or revision, against the defendant shall be excluded where the proceeding relates to the same matter in issue and is prosecuted in good faith in a court which from defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature is unable to entertain it. Exclusion of time during which you are prosecuting the suit in a court having no jurisdiction or defect of jurisdiction, that you are entitled to get exclusion in the second suit if the conditions in 14.1 are satisfied. What are the conditions? The time during which the plaintiff has been prosecuting with due diligence. Due diligence. That is required. So, due diligence aspect has to be proved. The plaintiff has been prosecuting with due diligence another civil proceeding, whether in the court of the first instance or of appeal or of revision, against the defendant, so same parties. The first one may be a suit, appeal or revision, no problem. But the exclusion is possible when these conditions are satisfied, plus where the proceeding relates to the same matter in issue. You file a second one, same matter in issue must be, and is prosecuted in good faith. Which one? First suit. In a court from defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature is unable to entertain it. So, prosecuting with due diligence. You are prosecuting with due diligence another civil proceeding. In a court of the first instance or appeal or revision against the defendant, that period shall be excluded where the proceeding relates to the same matter in issue and is prosecuted in a good faith in a court which from defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature is unable to entertain it. So you instituted a suit in court A which could not entertain it because of defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature. Supreme Court has said that it is to be interpreted a justum generis. So, if a suit, the court cannot entertain that suit because of defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature, and you were prosecuting that suit with due diligence in good faith, then the period during which that suit was pending in the wrong court, let us take it wrong court, shall be excluded in computing the period for the next suit. I am using the expression next suit, but here suit. You file a suit. For computing the period of limitation, you are entitled to exclusion of certain period. Which period? The period during which you were prosecuting another, during which you have been prosecuting another civil proceeding with due diligence, and that civil proceeding was pending in a court which because of defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature could not entertain the suit. I think I have made the position clear. I will explain once again. Today you are filing a suit. Period of limitation has to be computed. Apparently it is beyond, suppose limitation period is 3 years. On the date of filing of the suit, it is apparently beyond 3 years. you claim that you are entitled to exclusion of certain period. What is that period? The period during which you are prosecuting another civil proceeding with due diligence in respect of the same subject matter in a court which, because of defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature, could not entertain that suit. So what are the ingredients? You are filing a suit. That may be sometimes on the face of it is barred by time. You are claiming an exclusion of what period? A period during which you are prosecuting another civil proceeding. In which court? In a court which could not entertain that suit. Why? Because of defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature. Were you prosecuting that suit with a due diligence? Yes. In good faith? Yes. Then you are entitled to exclusion of that period for the purpose of computing the period of limitation of the suit in question, suit which you filed today, which is apparently barred by time on the face of it. If you are entitled to exclusion of that period is excluded, then this will be within time. I think I have made myself clear. Now subsection 2, that is instead of suit an application with a slight difference. Let us see. In computing the period of limitation for any application, the first one is for any suit. Under the Limitation Act, there is suit, appeal or application. There are three major categories of cases. Suits, appeals and applications are dealt with. And here subsection 1 deals with the suit. Suit, what is the requirement? Same subject matter. Same matter in issue. Same matter in issue. The proceeding which you are prosecuted in a court, in a wrong court. Now when it comes to application, computation of the period of limitation for any application, the time during which the applicant has been prosecuting with due diligence another civil proceeding, whether in a court of the first instance or of appeal or revision, same wording, against the same party, for the same relief, shall be excluded. Where such proceeding is prosecuted in good faith in a court which, because of defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature, is unable to entertain it. Same thing. Only thing is that subsection 1 it is suit, subsection 2 it is proceeding. In an application. So far as application is concerned, the time you are seeking exclusion in prosecuting another proceeding, that proceeding and this proceeding must be for the same relief. Whereas in the case of a suit, same relief aspect is not necessary. Same matter in issue. The suit which you are prosecuting may contain two reliefs. Then because of a defect of jurisdiction, that court could not entertain it. You file a suit in the proper court with the four reliefs. Subject matter in issue same. Matter in issue same. The period during which the former proceeding was pending shall be excluded if the conditions are satisfied. But when it comes to computation of period of limitation for any application, the restriction is that the former application in a wrong court must have been for the same relief which you are claiming in the present application. I think the position is clear. Now we go to subsection 3, which is crucial for the purpose of interpreting Rule 2 of Order 23. We will read word by word. It is difficult to understand. Unless you go to 14.1 and 14.2 and understand the scope of 14.1 and 2, and then 3 will be difficult. Notwithstanding anything contained in Rule 2 of Order 23. What is Order 23, Rule 2? No saving of limitation. Filing of a fresh suit is not a guarantee for a period of limitation. In fresh suit instituted on permission granted under the last preceding rule, the plaintiff shall be bound by the law of limitation. So if it is barred. Then 14.3 of the limitation action is an exception to Rule 2 of Order 23. What is that exception? Notwithstanding anything contained in Rule 2 of Order 23 of the Code of Civil Procedure, the provision of subsection 1 shall apply. 1 of section 14 shall apply in relation to a fresh suit instituted on permission granted by the court under Rule 1 of that order, that is Order 23, where such permission is granted on the ground that the first suit must fail by reason of a defect in the jurisdiction of the court or cause of a like nature. You get permission of the court to institute a fresh suit under sub-rule 3 of Rule 1 of Order 23. Rule 2 of Order 23 says that in computing the period of the fresh suit shall be bound by the law of limitation. Plaintiff shall be bound by the law of limitation. So if a fresh suit is filed, it is barred by time, you are out. Notwithstanding that, if the permission is granted by the court under Rule 1 of Order 23 on the ground that your suit must fail because of a defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature, as is mentioned in section 14, then you are entitled to exclusion of the period during which that proceeding was pending in the wrong court having no jurisdiction, in computing the period of limitation for the fresh suit. You instituted a suit. You found that there is a formal defect, or there are other reasons for withdrawal from the suit with permission to institute a fresh suit. You sought permission under sub-rule 3 of Rule 1 of Order 23. Court granted that permission. Rule 2 of Order 23 says that you are bound by the law of limitation if you institute a fresh suit. That means we do not say anything that if it is a fresh suit is barred by limitation, you are out. An exception to that you will get in section 14.3 of the Limitation Act. That is, notwithstanding anything contained in Rule 2 of Order 23. If permission to withdraw from the suit was granted under sub-rule 3 of Rule 1 of Order 23 on the ground that your suit was bound to fail because of a defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature, then you are entitled to exclusion of that period during which that suit was pending in the wrong court for the purpose of computing the period of limitation for the fresh suit which you may institute with permission of the court. Exclusion is possible under 14.1, 14.2 for the suit as well as application. But there is a provision in Order 23 Rule 2 that if you get a permission to withdraw from the suit, you are not entitled to get any, you are bound by the law of limitation. So on the face of 14.3, you cannot get, and on the face of Order 23 Rule 2, you cannot get exclusion for the purpose of computing the period of limitation for a suit if you are prosecuting another suit in a court because of defect of jurisdiction and you got permission from the court under sub-rule 3 of Rule 1 of Order 23. Not on this ground. if there is a defect of jurisdiction or other cause of a like nature, and your suit could not be entertained because of that reason, you are bound to fail in that reason. And you sought permission on that ground, and permission was granted, then notwithstanding Rule 2 of Order 23, you are entitled to get exclusion under 14.2, 14.1 or 14.2 as the case may be, as provided in 14.3. I think it is clear. Yes. Please read the following decisions when you read permission for withdrawal, etc. 2012 3 KLT, 2012 3 KLT, 656. Then 2008 2 KLT, 350. Abandonment and withdrawal. Abandonment at the appellate stage. Whether permission of the court is necessary, sometimes the abandonment may be asked for or withdrawal may be asked for, not in the suit stage but in the appeal stage. Appeal is a continuation of the suit. The appellate court has got the same powers as that of the trial court. All those things are agreed. But when it passes to the suit stage and comes to appeal, the court will be very, very circumspect in granting such permission. Please read that judgment. Then 2008 1 KLT, 630. Mary versus Annamma. There a contention was raised that the defendant suppressed evidence and documents, and therefore the plaintiff wants to produce more documents and evidence, and therefore permission may be granted to institute a fresh suit. That cannot be granted. Mary versus Annamma, please see the various shades of meaning of withdrawal with permission. 2008 1 KLT 630. KHC also 2008 1 KHC 762. Please read those decisions. And it is also stated in 99 1 SCC, 99 1 SCC, 81. The bar contained in Order 23 Rule 1 to institute a fresh suit is based on public policy. And it applies to writ proceedings as well. That is an interpretation made by the Supreme Court. Section 141 of the CPC says that the procedure here will not apply to writ proceeding. Let us see 141. Section 140. Miscellaneous proceedings. The procedure provided in this code in regard to suit shall be followed as far as it can be made applicable to all proceedings in any court of civil jurisdiction. In this section, expression proceeding includes proceedings under Order 9 but does not include any proceeding under Article 226. But the principles will apply. For example, res judicata. Res judicata as such, Section 11 as such does not apply to writ proceedings. But the principles will apply. Here, this is on public policy. This is 1999 1 SCC 81. Messrs. Ubadhyaya and Company versus State of UP. Please see all those things. The rest of Order 23 will be dealt with in the next episode. Thank you.